Now recognize Ms. Greene from Georgia for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2012, 6 miners working in a bat-infested mine in southern China caught a coronavirus, had symptoms like COVID-19, and 3 died. But we didn't see a worldwide pandemic. We didn't see millions of people die. We didn't see governments shut down their economies, take away freedoms such as speech, freedom of religion, freedom basically to work a job and support our families. After that, samples of that virus were taken to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the only biosafety level 4 lab in China. The Wuhan Institute of Virology did gain-of-function research on these samples and other samples of coronaviruses. In autumn of 2019, the SARS-CoV-2 virus appeared in Wuhan, the closest known relative to the virus extracted from the miners held at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Even early in the outbreak, the virus was well adapted to human transmission. Wuhan authorities worked to silence dissenters and those affiliated in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The CCP authorities lobbied the WHO to announce an international emergency and blocked scientific investigations access into the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Here's what's interesting. Chinese military major General Chen Wei was put in charge of containment of COVID-19. He is the CCP's top biological weapons expert and raises questions about Chinese military involvement at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Dr. Gary, Dr. Anderson, I'll ask each of you one at a time. Why would they put the top biological weapons expert in charge of containment of a virus that was very similar to the one that a few miners caught in 2012, that, by the way, didn't turn into a pandemic? Why would China put their top biological weapons expert in charge instead of just another virologist? Dr. Gary?
Representative Greene, I don't have any idea. I have no idea.
Okay, Dr. Anderson?
I can't comment on that. I think it's important to realize, I assume you're referring to the virus RTG13. And what is very clear is that RTG13 cannot have led to SARS-CoV-2. These are very unrelated viruses.
Well, it's interesting, though, that you all wrote a paper claiming to know exactly the origins of COVID-19, but China put their top biological weapons expert in charge of containment. On January 15, 2021, the Department of State released a fact sheet entitled Activity at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. It discussed 3 primary areas of concern. First one, illnesses inside the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The U.S. government believes several researchers inside the lab became sick in the fall of 2019 before the CCP first reported cases of COVID-19. That was in the lab. The CCP prevented journalists, investigators, and global health authorities from accessing the lab, including interviewing the researchers that fell sick in 2019. Sounds like they were concerned about so-called conspiracy theories, just like you were. There was also research at the lab starting in at least 2016. The Wuhan Institute of Virology was researching RATG13, just as you mentioned, the bat coronavirus, with the closest relationship to SARS-CoV-2, 96.2% similar. The Wuhan Institute of Virology has published record of dangerous gain-of-function research, gain-of-function like our government has funded with grants through EcoHealth. I'm sure you're familiar. There's secret military activity at the lab. The U.S. government determined that the lab collaborated on publications and secret projects with the CCP military since at least 2017. Perhaps that's why they put their top biological weapons expert in charge of containment, because they were very aware of the type of research that was going on at the lab, where people that worked at the lab got sick with COVID-19 first. But you guys think this came from nature. Do you still believe it came from nature, Dr. Gary, Dr. Anderson?
Yes, I do believe that the natural origin via the wildlife trade is the most likely origin based on all the science, all the data that we've analyzed.
Dr. Anderson?
I do. And I think it's important to, you mentioned the six researchers here. In the recent report, again, the IC continues to assess that this information neither support nor refutes either hypothesis of the pandemic's origin, because the researchers' symptoms could have been caused by a number of diseases.
Actually,
Dr.
Dr. Anderson, I'll reclaim my time. The IC believes that the origin of COVID-19 is from the lab. Most of the intelligence community believes that, and they've stated so. So is the Energy Department. And so do many other doctors and researchers believe that it came from the lab. And from all of this evidence, it's very clear that China also believed it came from the lab. But it's unfortunate that you all are speaking the same pro-China talking points as some of our colleagues on our committee. And I think it's more important to really recognize it probably came from the lab. I yield back.
Now recognize Dr. Jackson from Texas for 5 minutes.